Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the podcast for Master Brides. I'm Amy Collins. I am a certified wedding and event planner, and I help brides not just plan their weddings, but master them. Welcome to this week's episode. We are going to be talking this week about booking a venue. This is always a huge topic and very large stress for brides that we work with, not only on our program, but brides that we work with in our professional agency as well, which is Amy Grace Events. So we always like to have this conversation in an honest and real way because I feel that's the best way to approach it. It's one of those areas with event planning that has a lot of contention and a lot of emotion behind it, because I think a lot of times people's expectations and the reality of what they can purchase is usually a little different. So I want to make sure that we touch on all of those things. So one of the biggest things that I see starting off is that, and I feel like I'm a broken record for people who watch my live videos, have listened to my podcast before, budget. It all comes down to budget. We could want to get married in the most incredible place in the entire world, but our budget might not be able to afford such beautiful places. But I think the importance is to stop and think for a second and go, okay, what is it that I actually want in a venue space? And taking pause and saying, I like nature, or I like the beach. I like a rustic backyard. I like a barn. You can start with the idea of what you like first before you go down the rabbit trail of, oh my gosh, what can I afford, or what can I afford? I feel like so many times people approach what they can afford instead of thinking you're blessed to even be able to afford anything. And in today's world, that's a blessing. So I want you to reframe that first of all and think that you are blessed to have the money that you do have access to. And hopefully it will get you something that is in alignment with what your dreams are. For those of you who are watching our blog, you can see my lovely dog walking in the back per usual. His name is Prefontaine. For those of you listening, I'm sorry, you can't actually see how adorable he is. But anyway, so again, let's just reframe our minds to think that we are grateful for the money that we've been given. We are grateful that we're in a position to even be able to have a wedding, and we're grateful for what that money is going to be able to purchase to create this dream wedding. Okay, so let's first of all reframe our whole mind on that. Okay, from there, then I got a couple key points that I want to talk about today and help you maybe with your search just a little bit as you're going through your venue alignment, or rather checklist of everything that you have. Okay, so I'm going to make a couple assumptions, first of all, before we get started, that I'm not even going to touch on today in this podcast or blog, and that's budget. And I'm assuming you already have that set, okay? And then location. So you know where you're going to get married, like as far as the location, meaning if you and your spouse are from different areas, or let's say, you know, you're even grew up an hour from each other. Like you've decided what city you're going to have your wedding in, or at least the vicinity of that city. Guest count. We're not going to get guest count today, but guest count is directly affecting what type of venue you can get space-wise and all of that. So you need to have your guest count. So if you haven't done your guest count yet, go back and get that. Time of year. We also want to reiterate that you need to pick what time of year you're getting married, because that does play into what type of venue you get. If you're getting married in the Midwest and it's snowing, obviously getting married in a barn with no heat is not an option. So think about what time of the year you want to get married and have those three things, actually four, already picked before you kind of go down the trail for the venue choice. Okay. So first and foremost, logistics. While it's a boring part of the wedding planning and has nothing to do with aesthetics or how you feel when you walk in or all these different things that I could tell you and all the research that's out there, I think the number one thing that creates a lot of hiccups and honestly a lot of unforeseen costs in the end is logistics. So a lot of times people don't think about the fact of, wow, does this have enough parking? So sometimes venues are downtown and your guests are, for example, our LA clients, they could be spending $100 to park in a local parking facility. So that would be an undue cost on your guests. So considering parking and the availability of it and how far people are going to walk to get to your space is really important. If they're wearing heels, that could also be a big factor of how far they could walk. If you are dealing with a private venue, then parking could be, if it rains, and the ground gets muddy, does that mean that they can't park their cars? Like, would their cars get stuck? If you go visit this space in August and it's, completely dry and you're driving right onto this parking area and it seems completely fine. And then come March or April during your wedding after the rainy season or during the rainy season, and all of a sudden people's cars are getting stuck in the mud, or again, heels in the mud, like all these different things that maybe you're not thinking about when you're going to visit the space. So consider logistics, because they can add up really fast in cost if you're transporting people in or different things like that. Second of all, really, really, really important. How far is it from the nearest hotel? If you have any out-of-town guests, you need to make sure it's within a reasonable amount. And what a reasonable is really determining based on your location. If I said 10 miles in LA, that would be insane. It would take forever to get there. But if I say 10 miles in Texas, it may not take very long at all. So keep into consideration what is a reasonable amount. So I usually say between 15 and 20 minutes at max from a hotel. And the reason I say that is because transportation becomes the big issue. You want people to be safe. You are supplying them, for those of you serving alcohol, with something that can become a very dangerous substance, and your liability increases exponentially if you've served someone something and they decide to get into a car, and if anything happens or if anyone is killed in the process, they can come back at you. So make sure you're fully insured. We'll talk about that in another podcast at another time. But just make sure it's really close to a hotel so that people can make the right choice. Additionally, make sure that if you don't have a lot of out-of-town guests, let's say, that transportation is still very accessible. So I know a lot of these places that are doing barns or private spaces or wooded lots or all these cool places that you're seeing in Pinterest and on Instagram, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's in an advantageous location for your guests. Again, as I always preach to all of my clients and to our students and master brides, it's all about the guest experience. You are doing this stay so that your guests can help you celebrate. And if it's not about your guests, then just elope and don't have any guests. So make sure you're doing something that allows your guests to be safe and fully enjoy your space. The last thing you want is to have this incredible space, open bar, all of this money you've spent on your day, and then not have people fully participate in it because they're afraid, oh, well, it's too far out. We don't want to spend an Uber going that far, or we can't get Uber or Lyft. And so they choose to not partake in all of the funness that you have decided to bring for them. And because of that, you may have spent more than you needed to, and because they're not fully taking advantage of all of the benefits that are there. So keep that in mind, okay, when you are creating the thought process of if this is safe for your guests, okay? So keep those three things in mind, or those two things. The last thing as far as location, is what's included as far as the logistics, what's included. So venue spaces can rack up really fast if, let's say, you just have the shell of a space. And then it's, let's say, totally affordable. It's inside your budget. You're so excited. You book it. Then all of a sudden you realize we don't have tables. We don't have chairs. We don't have linens. We don't have things for people to eat off of. You got to think of trash cans. You got to think of all these things that, we as wedding planners, that's all we think of. We look at a space and we go, oh, wow, we got to do a build out. Okay. So build out's kind of our industry term for all the things that we have to bring into a space. We have to build it out so that it is fully contained for an event and self-sufficient. Just like if you went into a hotel, right? If you go into a hotel and you have a hotel banquet room, everything's self-contained inside of there. They've got all the necessary things to run an event. So when you are doing these venue spaces, again, I think it's one of those things that I'm seeing so often is that people have this romantic idea of what the space can be, and it could become that, but the cost to get it there might be so high that in the end, it's outside your budget and you're stretching yourself thin at the end. So you're cutting corners on areas that really need to be there in order to have the best guest experience. So when you're thinking about logistics, what's included, what's not included, and think about what that looks like. And so, for example, if something as simple as chairs and tables aren't available, then I would highly suggest you go to a local rental company and you get a quote for those and put it alongside of that venue agreement and make sure that that's still inside your budget, because you've got delivery fees and setup fees and pickup fees and windows for pickup, and rental windows and pickup windows can get really expensive in some areas. So just be very cognizant of that. Logistics. Logistics. That's kind of my jam. So, and I want to reiterate that to you. So when you're thinking about venue space, don't make it so about the space at first. Make it about the logistics. And then if that matches, then move on to the next section. Okay, flexibility with venues. This is, again, I'm not going to touch on every single thing you should be looking for in a venue. It would take me forever to do that. We'll break it up into bits and pieces over the next year. But these are the top, 3 or 4 things I want to bring to you that are maybe outside of the norm that you're hearing about. Flexibility. So we all know that certain venues allow certain things to happen at that venue. So for example, alcohol. Alcohol is an extremely high cost in any venue that is self-contained. So if you're in a hotel, you're going to pay a per head rate to either have unlimited bar, you could do beer and wine, or you can do consumption based. And depending on your level of drinkers, and always think they're going to drink more than you assume. Always, don't ever think they drink less. I can promise you it always changes at a wedding. That is a direct cost that not only is that the cost of the per head. So let's say an unlimited alcohol package is $50 a head. First of all, you don't get to pick, oh, well, I only have 50 drinkers and I have 100 guests. No, 100 guests is the way they're going to do it. Second off, now you have bartender fees on top of that. You've got administrative costs, which are usually 15 to 17%. Then you have a gratuity on top of that. So all of a sudden, that $50 a head jumps to like 80. So it's a huge number. Alcohol is a huge, huge, huge number, along with catering. But honestly, alcohol is what usually throws people over their budgets. So what does that look like? If you want to provide a full bar experience, then you need to potentially have a venue space that allows you to bring in your own alcohol. We're not going to get into the logistics of that as far as what to have in it and all that. We'll do that in another podcast. But my biggest piece of advice, if you are bringing in your own alcohol, highly insure yourself, like I was saying earlier, because you want to protect yourself when there's alcohol involved. Okay? Second thing, outside food. Just like I was saying with alcohol, the cost, when the inside catering, you have a certain set kind of menu, you have a certain things that you can do. And with that, usually it's limited and it costs a lot of money. A lot of times you don't have a lot of flexibility when it comes to inside catering contracts because you have no negotiation, right? You can't negotiate anything out of the deal because you're stuck with them, which is great for a lot of places that have incredible chefs and you have the money. But if you need to have flexibility in your budget, a lot of the times you need to be able to bring in outside vendors for that space. So, and if they do have an inside vendor, they include all logistics, back to logistics. Do they include tableware, like plates, napkins, cups, glassware, all of that? Make sure they do that. If they don't, then that needs to be something that you're going to discuss with them because that could be an additional cost. So make sure you have all those questions with them. And then duration of rental. Some places let you have the rental from Friday to Monday. Some places only let you have it for 6 hours. Having a space for a certain duration is directly in direct correlation to how many vendors you have and if they're able to do it. So for example, if you're DIYing a lot of your wedding, you will probably need more time to set up because you may have less bodies to help you. You're not a professional at this, so you're going to probably have a little bit more time, like learning how to do things or set up. And I always joke and say, take the time you think it's going to take you to do something and double it, because that's typically how long it takes people to do something. So give yourself plenty of time. So if a venue space you really love says you can have the day of event for 10 hours, I will tell you right now, if you are DIYing your wedding, that is going to be very difficult, because not only do you have the entire party inside of that and your ceremony, but on top of it, you have to actually get ready. So that leaves you very, very, very little time to actually set up, unless you have a very strong setup crew that is coming in to set up. So look at the duration of time and how long you actually have the rental. Okay. And then third, staffing. So I think one of the big things is that a lot of times people will tour a space and they'll say, oh my gosh, I loved the venue manager so much. She was so awesome. She was so nice. She's going to take care of us. It's awesome. We just fell in love with her. And first of all, that's great. That's awesome. That is such a huge thing. However, venue managers change and staffing turns over. So you need to be in love with the entire operation of what's going on at that venue. So that comes down to, do you like the staff outside of that? Like, do you like the servers? How do they interact with you when you walk in? How does the front desk, if they have a front desk, like how do they interact with you? I always kind of joke, like, drop by when they're not expecting you and you'll see how they act, because that's how a true indication is. So if you're, let's say, doing a formal venue site visit on a Saturday, maybe drop by your deposit on a Tuesday afternoon at a really random time, just to kind of see how it all goes. I know venue managers probably don't like me for saying that, but I will tell you, if you are confident that you have a buttoned up organization and a buttoned up staff, you will not be worried when people stop by. So catch them by surprise a little bit, because how they are caught in surprise is how they would react in a stressful situation on your wedding day. Okay. So just some fun stuff on that. Excuse me. Staff ratios. Big thing. With the cost of staff going up and just the cost of doing business overall, and brides using the term affordable, which, by the way, if you could do anyone a favor, don't use the terms arm and a leg, affordable, reasonable. Those are words that are describing your indication of what that is, not everyone else's. So, for example, your reasonable could be $2,500 for a videographer. Someone else could just be absolutely appalled by that and say $500 is reasonable. And some people might say, y'all are crazy, $10,000 is reasonable. So when you're in search for something, especially in bridal blogs, or if you're in our group in Masterbrides, which I encourage you all to check out at masterbrides.com, just make sure when you're searching, you are putting parameters around what that looks like. And if you don't know what that looks like, as far as what the basic cost of something is, research it. Research what the standard is, and go in understanding if the national standard is $1,500, then can say, I need someone that is less expensive, so I need someone at $500, and put that price. Okay? And don't be afraid to put what you're looking at. Now, people may say things, especially on free bridal blogs and Facebook groups and whatnot. It tends to get a little catty. That's why we really did start Master Brides. We like the safe community that it creates, our bride tribes, and we love that. But just keep that in mind. But don't be embarrassed, because you don't want to go into debt because of a dollar amount. It's just dumb. So don't do that to yourself. But staff ratios are really important, because they quite literally create the entire experience your clients are going to have and your guests are going to have at the event. So 1 to 20 is typically what they're going to say for a buffet style. And I'm seeing them try to push 1 to 15 for plated. 1 to 10 is a pretty standard for plated in the higher end industry. They'll probably try to get it, 1 to 15. If you go into this question, I think it always shocks people a little bit, because they're not expecting you to ask it. But if they hesitate at all on this, that's an indication that they probably won't provide the number that they said. But the people who do have it buttoned in, they'll say it. They'll go, oh, we run a 1 to 20 ratio for buffet, and we have 3 bartenders, and blah, blah, blah. Now, please understand when they say 1 to 20, they're probably including the sous chefs, the line, the dishwashers, and all of that. It's really important to understand you need to indicate, I need 1 to 20 on the floor. I need 1 to 20 or 1 to 10 taking care of my guests. And I see very, very, very few groups doing that. And it's important that it's that number because it's really hard. Things have to come out all at the same time. And it's kind of hard to do more than that a number of people. Think about if you go to a restaurant, you have one waitress taking care of 10 to 15 people. That's a lot going on for that one person. Well, imagine that in a room of 100, 200 people. So staffing costs can get very expensive rapidly, as you can imagine, for big weddings. So make sure that you have this buttoned down with staff ratios. So if their staff ratios seem off, like your experience isn't going to be that great. So just keep that in mind. Restroom attendants and facility managers, ask about this. If it's in a rustic location, such as a barn, I know a lot of places are just kind of flying under the radar and they're not necessarily registering their location as a business. They just have this barn. They're allowing people to use it for weddings, but they don't run it like an operation. So if a glass breaks on the floor, is someone going to come clean that up? Is there someone watching if the toilets get overflowed or if the paper towels run out? I mean, those are the things that we as planners really talk to our clients about. And I really coach our brides inside of Master Brides about this, because there is nothing more disgusting than walking into a bathroom, particularly at a wedding that's supposed to be a nice adventure, and there's toilet paper all over the floor and overflowed toilet, and it's just gross. And so checking to see if they have a dedicated bathroom attendant or if they have a facility manager and how long they're going to be on site, to make sure that they're from before the event starts in case you need anything till after it ends in case you need anything on cleanup. So just ask about that from a facility management perspective. If they give any hesitation at all, it might be smart to go somewhere else, okay? Because you want someone there to take care of that. When those are the dirty things that no one needs to be dealing with on your team. I can promise you that. Okay, and then last but not least, hidden fees. I'm not going to get super into this one because this is a whole training in itself, but contracted hidden fees, the number one place I see it is in venues. And the problem is that they go in, they give you an idea how much they cost, they give you a high idea of how much you're $30 a head for food, and the venue space is $4,000. And you just add it up in your head, okay, 100 people, 3,000 this, okay, yeah, we totally can do that. It's under our budget, we're good. And then you get all excited and they put this pressure on you. We've got 4 brides interested in your date. If you want to sign up today, then you can go ahead and put your deposit down and we can get you locked and loaded. And they put this pressure on you to lock in their venue space. And I understand that venues are in hot commodity and I'm not going to deny that. However, what I tend to see is people who don't stop and read the contract and really read the fine print are the ones that are in the end scrambling and freaking out and spending so much extra in their budget that they didn't have. So just pause. If you want to get the venue that day, then I recommend you look at them and you say, can I have a full contract? Can I have a full printout of what this would cost me out the door? That's including administration fees. That's including tax and tip. Give them an estimate of your number because you should have a guest count already roughly, okay? Go with a middle package for everything. So you just that's humanity, middle of the road, get a middle package and look at what that looks like out the door. Okay, first and foremost. And then ask them, do you have any AV costs? Some of these hotels, they make you use their AV teams, even if you have a DJ. So make sure that's not on there. Some of those are upwards of $3,000 to $4,000. Lighting packages, make sure you don't have to book into those on certain ones. Certain things like, do they provide a dance floor? Is that an extra cost? Oh, wait, that's an extra $1,000? Didn't know that. Do I have to have a dance floor? Well, yeah, you have to have a dance floor. Okay, well, why isn't that on my costs? So stopping and taking the time to read over the contract and making sure you see all the extra costs and underline things, ask questions, ask too many questions. honestly ask too many questions, because there is never too many, and you will always have questions. If there's anything that gives you like a, I don't know about that feel, stop, pause, and ask again, and make sure you write it all down. In addition, have them write it down and clarify things. Have them follow up via email, or have them write on your contract. That's what it is. And have them initial it so that you know for sure you got clarity on that. I see so many costs come up with brides, and I see so many of you writing in these groups that I follow all of these crazy vendor stories about venue spaces and all these extra fees that you didn't have to pay. And I guarantee you it's in the contract. It's in the fine print. It might be written in a way that you don't understand. If you struggle with contract reading because it is not fun, then I recommend you either hire a planner a la carte, so just have them look it over. It's worth a couple $100 to have them look at a contract to save you thousands, I promise. Or have someone you know that's a lawyer look at it, or someone you trust that you know is going to stop and pause and really read the fine print and make sure that you're not coming up against any random things later on. Okay. And then making sure that you're able to lock in your rates for your food and your alcohol and your all of that. Some people, they have you put a deposit down, and then all of a sudden their prices double. And by the time you get to your wedding, especially if it's, let's say, 18 months out, all of a sudden their pricing has changed and they've become unaffordable. Make sure you're locking in your rates for everything. Get it in writing. Get everything. 2019 menu. You know what I mean? Like, those are the type of things that you need to get in those contracts, that you're not ending up with fees. Okay. So in closing, there's so many things that you need to know when you are booking your venue. Honestly, there's so many things you need to know about planning a wedding. Only 27% of brides actually get a wedding planner, which is really interesting to me. This is a new study out by Wedding Wire. They pulled over 30,000 brides, and that's the number that they're getting. And that includes up day ofs, or wedding day management, as we call it. And to me, that's concerning, because really good wedding planners, those of us who've been around the industry long enough, we know how important, and vendors, ask any vendor the importance of a good wedding planner. They will preach it. When you don't have one, you need the advice of one. And a lot of you are getting piecemeal information all over the internet, and you're putting together little bits and pieces, and you're not necessarily getting a full picture of everything that you need to know to plan your own wedding. So that's why we created Master Brides. We created this awesome subscription-based program. It's $39 a month. It's masterbrides.com. I encourage you to check it out. We put you in a bride tribe, or a cohort of girls that are getting married the same month you are, and we help release information to you that is relevant for you planning your wedding. So all of these aspects I talked about today and more in regards to venue planning, we talk about, we answer your questions. We bring on professionals that own venue spaces so you can ask them different questions. We want the most educated group of DIY brides out there. We understand that many of you want to plan your wedding, or at least get your vendors and whatnot. But at the end of the day, planning a wedding is way more than just booking your vendors and thinking that, hey, I've got it done and I'll plan a couple things and get some decor and whatnot. Wedding planning is all about logistics. It's understanding things that most people, unless you've done this multiple times, you're never going to know are going to happen at a wedding. Will someone do it on the day of your wedding? It will happen, but someone's going to be running around and making decisions that may or may not be what you had in mind. So that being said, we encourage people to get into a program like Master Brides, where we help you plan your wedding just the way you want it, inside sophisticated software and timeline management software that allows all of your ideas to be put down and executed the way you wanted to on the day of your dreams. So I encourage you to take a look at it. We're fully launching in October, and so and going nationwide with it. So we encourage you to get in and see if your cohort and your month is opening, and we will see you next week when we meet again. So until then, happy planning.